Very quickly, I started the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance 2 years ago because I felt that we needed a platform in this industry where CPaaS and telcos really come together. You can absolutely sit down. I'm going to sit down too. So we started that 2 years ago, and we're working with GSMA for almost a year now, especially on the, let's say, the monetization side of things. So that's what this panel is going to be about. We just listened for a while to people talking about APIs and more APIs and lots of APIs and issues in the industry and challenges, and which is all very important. But I like to think that we're at a point now, let's say almost 3 years after the start of Project Chimera, we're at a point where we really need to think about the monetization. And there was one remark in the session by Anup earlier, where he talked about APIs as products. So I would really like to talk with these two fine gentlemen in the next 30 minutes about the users of these products and how that's going to work. But first, maybe a quick introduction, both of you. Mikko first.
Hello, Mikko Jarva, born and raised in Finland, nowadays based in Sunnyvale, California. I've been thinking about how to platformize networks for maybe last 8 years, and then that thinking led into, for us, incubating a platform called Network as Code, which is a value platform for advanced APIs and how to create applications which run on top of the network and leverage the networks. And my dream and mission is really to do my best to transform how the networks are consumed and monetized.
Mijo.
So Mijo Soldin, born and raised in Croatia, kind of similar size of Finland. Yeah, and currently based in Chicago. Worked for 21 years for Ericsson. Sorry, Mikko. So I know a little bit about the telco, and last 5.5 years in Infobip, which is the most connected global communication platform as a service.
Cool. Well, welcome. Great to have you here. So, first question, really. When you think about APIs, and as I said, Anup made a great comment. APIs are not just interfaces, but they should be products with a life cycle, with monetization, with documentation, etc. What's the current state of affairs? Can developers buy these network APIs? Can they go use your developer platform to use them? I mean, are they really products today that developers can pick from the shelf, use their credit card, etc., or are we not quite there yet? Who wants to go first?
Okay, let's exchange. So, I mean, APIs are a product for many, many, many years. I assume you're thinking about network APIs. That's where I think some of us can help here, because selling API, like, it's also a skill. It also requires, some kind of experience, and I think experience from CPaaS players selling API can help in network APIs as well. Regarding network APIs, I won't go into the technical part. Mikko, my friend here, is much, much more experienced here. It is available. It is not widely globally available. I can reference a little bit. I think I'm losing the mic. We heard a lot about technical part. That's all there. It's ready. We heard a lot about partner ecosystem. They're also super important. Here, okay, we didn't hear a lot about customers. So I think this is the key, how we all kind of tackle this, quote, business development of these network APIs. And I hope we can talk a little bit about those as well. So yes, it is available. Is it global? No, but we have small pockets which kind of help us, learn. What are we doing good? What can we do better? But also proof points, we are on the right track.
Mikko, from your point of view?
Yeah, very much. Very much.
Now you get broken one.
Very much agree with Mijo's assessment. We are quite early on making network APIs really available. I want to take a step back and think about what are the network APIs actually for, and how do we think about it as network APIs is a way to build the next generation digital infrastructure which will be used by different mission critical applications, including those banking and financial applications, but including also logistics, transportation, and all kind of an application. Building that mission critical digital infrastructure, and it's digital because you can easily consume it by ecosystems. It's mission critical because it provides value and enables more secure, better applications and services. So it takes time. It takes time. There's a lot of moving parts into it. We have to prime the networks for it. I be very honest, the networks are not yet primed for programmability and exposure. Then we have to have the channels to the ecosystem that make it easy to consume those networks. And then we have to build universality, which we already discussed here today, you know, by having standard API definitions and aggregating network capabilities and so forth. Now, we are taking also early steps to make them available for piloting and testing. So we do have end-to-end piloting capability for trying out and building value creating applications that leverage this digital mission critical infrastructure that we're making available.
Can you give some examples of these advanced services? Because I like how you bring that up. Some practical examples that the enterprise developer should know about. So what are these things that, I mean, we're all excited about network APIs as we sit here, but what are these things that the average enterprise developer may not be aware is now possible through network APIs on these mobile and fixed networks?
Right. Yeah, I can give some examples. I was discussing with Raul in the morning, and you know, one of the sort of a mission critical application is real-time remote presence for controlling or overseeing or assisting some kind of an autonomy. So this applies for remote or autonomous driving that requires sometime remote assistance. And we see a little bit of that already on our streets. But actually, if you look into harbors and logistical hubs or so forth, there everything is already largely automated, and it's only occasionally that somebody needs to get remote presence then to assist the automation in place. And these are all mission critical applications. You know, if there is a container unloading that doesn't happen in a harbor, and there's something goes wrong with the automation, then you want to get that remote assistant into a place, because it's very dangerous job to go under the forklift or the crane which is moving the container. So you need to have to be able to have the on-demand, real-time digital presence to support and augment this automation application. So these are some of the kind of very interesting, highly value-creating use cases where we see that we require network specialization. And how these application developers currently use the networks is very much over the top. So they assume that the network is in there, the network cannot be specialized, and then they use it just over the top. Harbors, you have to put a private wireless in there to then have the sufficient kind of a capability. You cannot use those on demand, and the same thing very much applies with the public network. So what we need to educate is the developers of the operational automation technology application is that in the future you can on demand program the networks to make your applications more secure.
That's a great example. And Mijo, I'm thinking of Brazil, where you have some experience, but maybe have other examples.
Just to kind of like, you know, add on to the Mikko's, I really like your example with harbor and controlling the boat, how it gets into this one. This was really cool when I was talking to some Nokia colleagues about this one, and actually we did something kind of quote similar. We talk about developers, so we have this biggest European developer conference Shift, where all these teams together with T-Mobile demonstrated driving the vehicle. The car was sitting in Croatia, and the actual car was driving around the Finland Of course, not the real streets, but kind of parking lots. But this is in line of this kind of automation and driving stuff. Our case in Brazil is extending the presentation our colleagues and friends from SUSH has about the whole set of Camara and network APIs around authentication. And in Brazil actually is one thing cool, because we kind of finally, after so many years of struggle and ticking the boxes of together with GSMA and others, we finally have the country fully covered, which is one of the basic prerequisites for any business to come and really use network APIs on a mass scale is coverage. So the Brazil is country which is currently covered full commercial. Anybody, any developer or hyperscaler or enterprise can go and buy the Camara-based network APIs around authentication. So all the SIM swap, the authentication, tenure and stuff like this. We are even thinking to add into Camara some other APIs which we learned nicely extend from Brazilian case. Again, are we seeing that now all the pins are in Brazil transferred from SMS to this? No. This is this part of the adoption, the education of the market, explaining the value, and also figuring out the monetization part. So what is this business case? Like why someone would move, like, okay, if this is good enough for me and price is right, like what pushes me to go over the edge and try the new technology? The other examples is also this on-demand. Someone mentioned it here. I think the whole set of on-demand, quality on demand and stuff. So there was examples in I think Asia, the stadiums where the crowded area, the cells are full, so you can have like really on-demand pipe through which you can offer services. I think it's really cool that you can order your hot dog and drink on your seat and not being jammed by, like then you get it at the end of the game. Of course, many others are in this one, ride sharing and stuff like this, which can extend on this. But the coolest examples are, we don't know yet. And this is where when we push it to the ecosystem, to developers, to people out there, they'll figure out if we educate them what network actually can do, as Mikko said, then the coolest one will come. Because however you all here are smart, there's much smarter people all together there. And when people understand this, then the new use cases will come extending each other.
We recently at the Alliance, we launched a service provider playbook with 93 use cases that service providers, telcos around the globe are already using today to make money. 93 in all different verticals and domains, and it includes RCS for those of us still trying to kick off or getting back into the game, but also network APIs. So out of the 93, I remember I think 7 of the use cases were based on network APIs. Now I was a little bit disappointed. That was only 7. On the other hand, I mean, we're 2.5 years into the game and it's already 7, and these are actual use cases. So this is actually not a test, not a trial, not a demo, but it's a real implementation that's making money or at the verge of starting to make money. So I'm hopeful that maybe next year it's like 20. But I have 2 questions. One is the Brazil case, because that comes out as one of the prime candidates. And also the SUSH story, I think, was very clear. This is a real problem that we have in our world, right, that we want to solve. If it works in Brazil, and you launched that, I think, almost a year ago, about a year ago?
Yeah,
year ago. So why not launch it in different countries? Every month a new country.
Yeah, that's a cool question, yeah. So Brazil case was, how to say, the real one, because it's kind of significantly sized market, since it's targeting the security cases. It's kind of like highly fraud, like, market as well. And there we kind of pilot this like security as a package, because each one of those use cases that you named is okay working alone, but then we kind of put a layer on top. It says, okay, what if we combine all 3 or 4 together? So like, SIM swap, and then the authentication, and then a tenure, and then offer it as a package, and a little bit intelligence behind it, like, combining those 2. And then this it was super hard, like it took us more than a year to get all the MNOs onboarded. And this is why we work here with Nokia as a partner. This is why we welcome the JV and all these nice brands we saw today, because we need all networks to be ready. So answer to a question is like, yeah, let's do it, but it's just not ready there. And by readiness, I don't mean like all the boxes we heard this morning, like technical part, yeah, that's check. But then it's, the business case ready, the model's ready, but also market needs to be ready. Like market needs to be educated. Yeah, we really need it. So the whole ecosystem needs to be ready. So this is why, unfortunately, it doesn't go like one market a month, but I think, it will explode at one moment. So there will be like 3 markets 1 month.
You want to add something to that, Mikko?
Yeah, just coming back to the earlier point, yeah, we are building this digital mission critical infrastructure, and it takes time to build it. We need a lot of integration, whether there is NEF and SCEF as mentioned earlier on, or there is a direct integration into telco APIs, those integrations have to be done. Even if there is a good aggregation and standardization being applied, there is still differences. It's still a lot of work, so we have to prepare the integration between the networks and the platforms and do that by market, and bring universality and generality, and that then brings the support for different kind of use cases. By the way, on the use cases list, and I wanted to comment on that as well, it's not that the use cases are not there, the 7 use cases, there's actually much more. It's just that we need also time to learn about what kind of problems the verticals have, what kind of problems do they have with the connectivity management that they actually now need to engineer around, because the concept of the network APIs haven't been there for them to use or think about it. So the use cases will be found, value can be created, we just need time to find the problems to solve, but there are problems to be solved.
I like that. And it brings me to my next question. Because I have some experience building API stores at telcos. I did one with KPN 7 years ago, 8 years ago, one of the first API stores. And sort of the conclusion then was, and I think it's still true now, an API doesn't sell itself. And you mentioned that also. I mean, Infobip and also like Twilio and Vonage have spent so much time and effort trying to get developer community to build, because you need a different way, a different go-to-market, right? We're not dressed for developers today. We're not wearing our hoodies, etc. It's a totally different game. Now, when I think of the network APIs and the opportunities here, I like to think that we have, as an ecosystem, as an industry, we have the opportunity to solve some real challenges that we have in our world. The energy transition, healthcare, some of the financial and logistical things that we touched on already. These are really serious issues that maybe the bigger telcos are great partners for, instead of, let's say, CPaaS startups of the early days. And the combination of the CPaaS platform and the telcos is an amazing opportunity, a very powerful force here, I think. However, now we still need to do that thing that you mentioned, Mikko. We need to go from an idea to a test, to maybe a product market fit, to validation, and then scaling a company, etc., which typically, for anybody here in the audience, has everybody here ever done a startup from start to finish? Did it take what, 3 months, 6 months, 5 years, right? More. So this is the challenge, right? And this is also a challenge when you think of normal timelines in the world of telcos. After 3 years, if something is not a $100 million business, it usually gets scrapped by somebody. So how do we break that, or what can we do, and how do you guys support these new founders, these developers, these people that have an amazing idea to solve a serious problem, working with these large corporates, which is a challenge in itself for a founder. But how do you then nurture that process? What sort of support do you give them? Or what do you think we should do as an industry to help them more?
A little bit about our engagement. Of course, well, I don't think the answer to that question is hackathons, but we do run hackathons on the network APIs and engage with startups or small companies to come and build their innovations or enhance their innovations on top of the network APIs and on our platform. We do engage with also startup incubator or funds as well to look into what kind of companies there are and whether their solutions could help solve the problems that we actually see in the market or whether their solution can be enhanced by the use of the network APIs. Those are some of the ways to do it, and I'm sure Mijo have some really cool ideas as well. How do we accelerate the small enterprise and startup ecosystem in respect to network APIs?
Yeah. Well, I'll answer your question with a question. So, what problem are we solving? Because if we know what problem are we solving, probably we are a little bit closer to actually solve it. I'm not sure it's solvable, but yeah. So how to find out first answer to this question is just, I think we need to be more out with our customers. And as Mikko mentioned, developers community, this is one segment of customers. So what developers problem have? So initial one was like, if you go to 3G, 4G is like, they didn't even know like what's mobile network and what's there. So, with this one, we are solving their problem. Like, okay, it's easy, it's API, you know this. It's just you are, reaching the different parameters down there. But they're not the only ones, So in, I don't know, fintech or whatever, we need to talk to, chief information officer, security officer, those guys, what are their problems? In edtech or some others like, okay, marketing, what do you need? What is your problem? And then think how network can help. Like, forgive me for saying this, and I have very few telco friends here, even in this room, is like telcos usually were figuring out from inside out, like, oh, this is the problem, this is how it should be done. In this kind of space, probably we need to talk more to those who actually have problem and try to understand, and then go back and, okay, this is the problem, let's see how we can do it. So there's many stakeholders, influencers, people in different segments. So, we talk about security, it's one on demand, like, chief product guys, developers, of course, they need to be familiar. If it's like, one-man band company, yeah, that's the guy. He's everything, like, CTO, CIO, CEO, everything. So, so that's just talk to the people and understand what's the problem.
We just had our annual event in Amsterdam 2 weeks ago, Casa 24. We spent the whole first day with telcos and a bunch of analysts talking about network APIs, digital transformation for the telcos, etc. And the conclusion at the end of day one was that telcos should talk more to their customers. And then we started day two with the CPaaS players who were going, okay, we knew that. Now let's see how we can make that work. But I think this is actually it's very true. And I think also we have the ideal combination here around network APIs to bring the telcos and, let's say, the software companies together, learn from each other, and find those right developers. Because I think a lot of telcos, not all of them, but a lot of telcos have enterprise customers that are knocking on the door and saying, hey, I've been doing my communication stuff with you for the last 100 years, or another 40 years, and maybe you can help me with something. They don't know, right? There's such a huge gap between their problems and what we think might be possible with advanced network stuff. That needs to be, that bridge we need to build. And I agree with you, we're not building it in our offices, we need to go out.
I can just show you one example, and this is how our company get into the identity space. We partner with GSMA long before. We called the product mobile identity. It was, gateway and stuff like this. So we talked to our customers, and our primary business was like, A2P, sending pins, authentication, stuff like this. And they say, hey guys, like, we need to be secure, but also is killing the user experience. So more secure you go, like CX is worse and worse until the point where it's 100% sure or 99 and it's unusable. So then we come back to the drawing board and write like the, what's the task? Like, more security, at the same time better CX. and then you know the problem, and then you go drill down and come up today to the Kamara APIs.
Mikko, you mentioned you're helping. You have an incubator program. You're helping startups.
Yeah, we have a few different kind of incubator programs, so we connect to the startup ecosystems as well. Like I mentioned, yeah, we run multiple different challenges on network APIs and on our platform, and that way discover new ideas and new enterprises. And we do this in collaboration also with our service providers, with universities and so on. And of course, that is always a great way to understand new ideas that are coming up, what kind of problems needs to be solved, and so forth. I wanted just one example came into mind, that what you mentioned, that the problems that the enterprise ecosystems or enterprise developers are solving, and then the problems that we think that we have answers in telco, they are so far away from each other. That's true. And I was thinking about one example. We have these remote-driven cars or safety drones or so on. If we look into those, usually each of them, they have like at least 3 or 4 SIM cards. So connectivity module within each of those equipment, right? That means that they've been doing lots and lots of over-engineering around the connectivity, because their problem was not, they didn't know that, okay, I'm going to have a network API which I can use to do this. So what they did a lot of over-engineering just to manage the as-is connectivity which is available from it. So this is a good example of, with some education, that okay, pretty soon, or now even in certain environments, you can program your network and you can make the network work for it. Then you can reduce that unoptimized setup where you have to have so much redundancy built for the connectivity management in these applications. And they want to focus on solving their problems, not the connectivity problems. So.
And I like what you say about solving their problems, because I've heard that a lot of times. For example, with the self-driving cars, I remember years ago people were thinking that 5G might be necessary for self-driving cars to communicate or do something, and then it turns out that that's not really necessary because it doesn't work that way. But quality on demand APIs are useful, because if a self-driving car gets stuck somewhere, then the insurance company and the regulatory requires manual override, so to be able to drive that car away, which makes a lot of sense. So I'm thinking there's many of these hidden use cases that you don't know or think of unless you're very deep into a vertical, into a space, and understand that it's not all about technology, but a lot of it is about processes, how companies work together. I mean, think about healthcare. I mean, regulatory issues, etc., which have nothing to do with the technology side, basically. And that's the challenge that we have to overcome. Raul, I'm looking at you for the time. Where are we? 2 more minutes, great. Very simple final question. What do you think will happen in the next 6 months leading up to Barcelona Mobile World, which is slightly bigger than this one? Usually that's where the big announcements get made. So we just had an announcement of an interesting JV done by 12 or 13 of the leading telcos and Ericsson. What can we expect in 6 months? Maybe from Nokia and Infobip, and also, I mean, we can combine that because of time. What's your message to network operators that may be sitting here about the APIs, how to approach it with the eye of monetizing?
Sure. So, yeah, what's going to probably happen? Yeah, I think the announcements will be concentrating towards the Mobile World Congress, but probably we will see a few more announcements, on the way going there. What's going to be happening with us? We're going to keep doing the integration and building that mission-critical digital infrastructure that we're talking about. So integrating platforms, integrating networks, integrating applications and use cases, and keep proving, that we can actually create very differentiated value with the network APIs. So yeah, I think that's what's going to happen, and of course there will be some interesting announcements and interesting demonstrations and practical process, I hope, progress that we can show by the next Mobile World Congress in Barcelona.
So about the announcements, of course, I cannot talk about it. So where we are aiming and looking into this space is, of course, together with Nokia and others, and the whole ecosystem is, since we are CPaaS and kind of our goal is conversational everything, we'll see how we can complement these, use cases with the network APIs and just, add more value from our side to our customers, but also partners around this one. Regarding your second question, was the message toward mobile operators or carriers? How can we help?
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.